Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to take a moment for everyone to log in and join the call. So we'll start in about 20 to 30 seconds. Also, thank you so much to those of you who also tuned in last month. We had a really great discussion and demo on malware hunting and threat detection, which obviously ended up being especially poignant as we meet today to discuss Log4j. So yeah, this month I'm really excited to introduce one of our own in-house senior security engineers, Eric Kaiser. And he's going to be walking us through some of our own lessons learned here when we were remediating Log4j. So before we get into that exciting discussion though, let's give a quick introduction of myself and fellow panelist, Eric. And as we introduce ourselves, we wanted to keep this session as interactive as possible. So please take a moment, use the Q&A feature down below. Let us know if there's anything specific you are looking for out of this webinar. And also please just drop us a note in the Q&A box and we'll answer it all during this session. All right, hey Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have a really interesting background and some hands-on security work prior to this, and then now obviously at Uptycs. So why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks so much, Jeremy. It's great to be here. So yeah, I'm a senior security engineer at Uptycs, internal to the company. I do endpoint and cloud security engineering. This is my third, cybersecurity is my third lifetime. I've done a whole bunch of things before this, and I kind of inadvertently came to this through some atypical ways, as I think is hilariously somewhat common for cybersecurity practitioners. I do operating system configuration. I do AWS IAM things, kind of anything and everything as that new world of XDR expands. And for fun, cybersecurity isn't exciting enough, so I chase adrenaline, riding and fixing and working on motorcycles in my spare time.
That's awesome. Thanks, Eric, for that great introduction. I'll give you guys a quick intro about myself as well. So I'm a technical product marketer here at Uptycs. Prior to Uptycs, I worked on day-to-day security operations and systems engineering for government clients. And yeah, in my spare time, I enjoy playing and watching soccer. So now let's take a look at the agenda we have for today. We have a really exciting session today and a lot to cover, so I'll quickly go over this. A few housekeeping items before we get into it. This webinar is expected to go around 25 to 30 minutes. I know everyone here is probably a little Log4j'd out, so we don't want to take up too much of your time. Instead, we want to just take these lessons learned, share them with you over the next 30 minutes, and hopefully they resonate with you and your teams and maybe give you some concrete ideas for thinking about structuring your security posture going forward. We just finished the introductions, so thank you, Eric. Next on the agenda, we'll actually move on to the key insights. So here we wanted to give you those key insights early on so you can keep seeing them appear throughout the rest of the demo and discussion. Then we'll move into our discussion itself of our major observations at 3 stages of our Log4j response. So the first stage is going to be talking about the discovery phase. The next is the remediation phase. And the final phase is actually going to be the continuous monitoring phase. Then we'll move on to the demo portion where I'll hand it over to Eric, and he's going to walk us through the Uptycs platform, showing us how he utilized specific tools to maybe speed up his investigation or remediation timeframes. We left time at the end for an open Q&A, but of course, please ask questions along the way. We'll keep an eye on the questions box. And if we don't answer it during this session, feel free to reach out to our emails and we'll be happy to connect and chat. We love talking about this stuff and we love talking about the security issues that are top of mind. So for the key insights here, the first thing a lot of our colleagues in the security world struggled with was just the simple act of knowing where the heck Log4j was on their system. Where was Java running? Where was Log4j installed? Can we see into Uber jars? Can we see into shaded jars? And I think these simple questions are the building block of good security. And a lot of teams were just simply left lacking. Our main takeaway here is that teams need to focus on really getting the simple parts of security right. And for us, that starts with just good software asset management. The next piece is around having set playbooks and knowing who internally is taking ownership of what components. Here at Uptycs, a lot of our own confidence came from knowing what role each team member should play and being able to confidently execute our plan of action. And then finally, we weren't able to get through Log4j on our own, and I really don't think anyone in the security world was able to get through Log4j on their own. Our relationship with the open source osquery has given us a strong appreciation for the community over the lifetime of Uptycs. And Log4j gave us the opportunity again to kind of work closely with the security community and specific colleagues across the field and come together to resolve these pain points. So in the next slide, I want to move into the discussion and talk a bit about this as a case study around Log4j and what we learned from this. So in this slide, I want to break down those key insights just a little more and explore more in depthly the lessons learned from Log4j. We're going to break this down into 3 phases, and the first one's going to be discovery. In this first phase, it became apparent very quickly that Log4j was one of the most pervasive security vulnerabilities in the past decade. And for so many security practitioners out there, the cry for support came in the form of requests around how to quickly inventory and track instances of Java or Log4j in their own environment. And when we think of the various high-tech tooling at our disposal, it's kind of wild that so many teams struggle with what I consider to be the building block of good security. And it's that simple good visibility and asset management. So here at Uptycs, we used our own osquery-based agent to make this easy and scalable. And with this agent, we were able to immediately query our assets and even look into Uber jars, shaded jars, and really investigate our environment. So Eric is going to give a great overview of this in a moment, showing just how easy this fundamental step was for our teams. So the next phase I want to focus on is remediation. And this involves implementing stopgaps or maybe updating your software with full patches. One of the first and easiest things you can do is just see if there are remediations already in place. Let's take, for example, even before the patch came out, you could see if the environment variables for your processes running Java have proper mitigations in the command line argument. So even before a patch version was released, there were mitigation techniques that could be implemented about as quickly as you could reach your servers, make changes, and then do a refresh. So then you could turn around and using a solution like Uptycs, you can then quickly and at massive scale validate that you're seeing those appropriate command line changes implemented after the services have been refreshed. And this kind of remediation phase leads into our final phase about continuous monitoring. And our final point here on the continuous monitoring aspect, the changes you made in that first week are likely not viable or good security posture beyond that first month. You know, the vulnerability itself permutates and mutates over time. And in that first month, we saw 4, maybe 5 different versions of Log4j come out. So keeping track of Log4j over time as one upgrade is simply not enough. Here at Uptycs, we use YAR scanning to check our configurations at scale and to also check if there have been exploit attempts. I don't want to sit on this slide too long though. Eric has some really exciting stuff to show us. And I think that's the real core of this conversation here. So Eric, I'll hand it over to you to walk us through the demo environment and highlight some of these specific learning points we just talked about. Anything you want to say before I hand it over to you?
No, I think that's a great introduction. Thanks very much, Jeremy. And I'll get this set up here.
Sounds good. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to you.
All right, let's make sure.
Perfect. I can see your screen. Great. Yep, that looks awesome.
Fabulous. Okay, just want to make sure that that's coming through. So great. So you walked through the kind of 3 phases that we went through internally, and that are a pretty good baseline, I think. So the first question, let's take, for example, you know, we've been made aware of this. Log4j is happening. It's a thing. There's a CVE 10, and we are like right of boom, right? We're not necessarily compromised. You know, we're 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour out from learning about this huge, massive vulnerability. And so the first thing that we want to do is ask the question, well, do I need to be worried? So what I have open here is a demo Uptycs dashboard. This is our product, and we used it internally on our own systems that run our software to go and ask the questions, hey, where is Log4j running? What hosts do we have Java on? What does that look like? And so this is based on you know, the osquery endpoint on all of our agents. On all of our endpoints, and we can either look at the global data lake, where all of the information from all of the different endpoints is kind of streaming together into one place, or we can go out and ask real-time questions. I need to know right now from each and every individual system, you know, what systems have Java, what systems are running Java, where jars are invoked, things like that. So I'm going to, and again, hypothetically, this is sort of the first hour after we're aware of this, I'm going to fire up a dashboard. I'm going to go ask all of my currently online assets that are running Ubuntu, because our servers are Linux based, and say, hey, select star from Let's do deb packages. These are all of the Debian packages installed on the system. You could do RPM packages for Fedora or CentOS, where the name is Java Common, which is the Java package on Ubuntu and many other systems. So you can see how quickly that came back across those 20 assets. These are all things that are online. And if we sort by row count, we can see that we have 4 systems that actually have Java Common installed. Fabulous. So we can drill down into each of those individual ones and get some more information. But right from here, we have a quick high level picture. Okay, I've got 4 hosts in my system that are running Java services. From there, we might want to see what is actually running. We might want to see what hosts are actually running Java. But before we do that, let's say that we didn't have all of those hosts online, or we wanted to kind of look back historically, or we needed to say, show me everything that was running or that had Java installed yesterday. Show me everything that had Java installed a week ago. And that's where that global data lake comes in, right? Being able to aggregate the answers to questions like these upstream in the cloud, you can do a historical look back. So the same question run against the global table would look something like this. Select the distinct host name, the name of the package and the version from the deb packages table, and the where the day was today or greater. Now, this can take a little bit longer, but we can see that one of the hosts is checked in. We can expand the scope a little wider and see if we get more results. Go back a day or two. This does take a moment, but even still, it's pretty quick. And there we go. So we can see that previously, when those hosts checked in, they reported their version of Java Common as 072. So again, right, we're 5, 10, 60 minutes out from learning that we might have a problem. We've been able to dive in and identify some specific subset of our hosts that need to be handed off to ops for, hey, go look and tell me if we're running what specific versions, what specific jars, what specific services we're running on these hosts that appear to have Java. But we can also ask that question ourselves. So again, reaching out to the real-time Linux hosts, show me everything in the currently running processes table where anything that looks like Java is running. And again, it reaches out to those hosts immediately, and we get results back very, very quickly. So even though we have 4 hosts that have the Java Common package, we only have 3 of them that are running active Java processes currently. And if we look at this top one, we can see that we're running a lot of Java processes, right? Java, OpenJDK, bin Java, we're running, and all of the command line arguments here. So again, we've gone from what do we have to, hey, this is what we have, and we have these hosts running Java. And something you were talking about kind of, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I just had a quick question. So this is amazing. And I think it's great, especially kind of the speed at which we're able to query and understand in real time or looking back historically. But I'm sure a few people on this call are saying, okay, this is great. We're looking at 20 assets in a demo environment. What's the scalability of this when I have, 1 million hosts or something like that? And I know Uma put out a really great blog post on this. So I just want to kind of pause for a second after seeing the speed at which we can kind of drill down or really just query our system. Just take a moment to talk about the scalability of this system in a osquery.
Yeah, of course. And you actually hit the nail on the head right there. So Uma's our VP of engineering and was involved in a lot of these remediation efforts internally. And he posted a great blog post, which was scanning 1 million hosts in under 30 minutes. And we can talk about the title or not, but it is actually something that is true. And the way that works is because the queries are sent out immediately, and it's a many cast relationship, right? A one-to-many relationship. And because this is running in the cloud at pretty significant scale, you can take these queries and send them out to 20 or 200 or 200,000 or 1 million, as we did, hosts and get those results back kind of almost immediately. There's always going to be network conditions. There's always going to be different loads on the endpoints. But as soon as those results are able to come back, you're able to look at them and kind of see them in the dashboard. And one other thing is that all of these things that I'm doing are very ad hoc, right? This is from an investigation perspective, right? Hey, I'm one person. I need to go and look at these things and see what this looks like. But one of the things, and we'll touch on this a little bit later as well, as we talk about kind of how to turn these into reporting and dashboards and other things. But it's important to know that you can take all of these queries that I'm running, all of these questions that I'm asking, and turn them into a query pack. And a query pack is something that runs every 15 minutes, or it runs every 5 minutes, or it runs every hour on a schedule that you specify. And so because endpoints check in at least every 15 minutes, you can write up all of these queries, turn them all into a query pack, set them for all of your Linux hosts to start asking themselves every time they check in next. And within a 15-minute window, where all of those hosts have kind of checked in a rolling fashion and gotten the new query packs and started to send data back, that's where that million hosts in 30 minutes comes in. It's not just the questions that I'm asking kind of individually, hey, will these hosts report once and please tell me what the answer is? It's, hey, let me turn these into something that's scalable and repeatable, and these hosts will ask themselves the questions and send that back, not instantaneously, but certainly very quickly. You're not waiting a day for answers. You're not waiting an hour for answers. As quickly as you can ask the questions, and as soon as your host can report back, you're getting those answers.
Awesome. Yeah.
And that's something that's been absolutely invaluable.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right. Because we want to not just fix the solution now, as you were talking about, right? Not just the mitigations necessarily before the patches came out, but turn it into sort of sustainable and scalable reporting. And this is a great way to do that. Awesome. So we were looking at the processes where names look like Java. You can look at the command line here if you wanted to see if the Log4j mitigations, right, disabling the JNDI lookups were put into the process there. You could drill down where the see if we've got Java util log, and that should narrow the field even further. I have to, because it's buried in there. So there's our old friend ops 1352 POC OU default. And there's that command line with the Java util logging. Now, obviously, you can do this for any of the Log4j mitigations. You can also look at the process envs table to see if those are passed as like running process environment arguments as opposed to actual command line arguments. But either way, you've got the ability to go through and look at the servers that are running Java and to see what the command line arguments are, to see what the context is in real time, right? Reaching out, showing me all of the processes that are running and kind of in that moment, or even looking back historically, because processes are reported back periodically. And you can even turn on process events, which just streams as processes are created and destroyed and forked and all of the rest. That information is streamed up to the cloud, and you can look back historically to say, oh, okay, well, Java was running 20 minutes ago, but now it's not. And that's, I want to respect our time here, so we won't go into that because there's a couple more cool things I want to talk about. So this is, again, kind of in that first hour of where are we at? What do we do? How does this work? What do I need to care about? Is my hair on fire? All the rest. So moving on from there, though, right? And we've looked at, the Java and the running processes. We've looked at mitigations. Maybe we've calmed down a little bit, or the heart attack isn't quite as severe because we've got the mitigations, or we identified the host with Java. We sent that to ops and said, hey, you need to do a rolling restart of all of these services with the command line arguments or the process environment variables in place. And then after ops has come back and said, okay, great, we've done this, you can go back and say, oh yeah, great, I see the new command line arguments, I see the new process environment variables, I can sleep a little better tonight, until the vulnerable version has been patched, right? And that was the thing where we had 4 different CVEs over the course of this kind of evolving experience, and being able to look and know that the mitigations are there was very helpful and reassuring for us and our customers, right? We used a lot of these tools and a lot of these learns we used internally, and turned around and passed them to our customers who were asking the same questions. What's in my environment? How does this work? What does that look like? So the last thing that I kind of want to talk about here, and something that's very powerful and very helpful, and you touched on it a bit at the end, was our ability to do Yahoo Rules. So I'm going to paste a very large query here. I would not be able to type this out, but this is kind of moving from, we do have the ability to use Yahoo Rules directly, and that's very powerful. So you can reach out to all of your hosts and do a one-time Yara scan on processes or memory or file if you specify that. This particular query is looking for Docker containers that are running Apache, right? We've containerized, or it could be Nginx, whatever that is. We are looking back through Docker container Apache logs to see if there are evidences of JNDI lookup attempts in the logs, right? This is, we started talking about the first hour, and now we're talking about a week or 2 weeks later. You've settled the system down, you've settled your environment down, you know that you've got it patched, but you still want to see if people are hitting the logs, right? If people are trying to compromise your environment, and making sure that you are not seeing success in those metrics. So you can, one other piece, and I'll take a quick sidebar here, I apologize, but one other piece of Yara that's very, very helpful and very powerful, and speaks very well to, almost directly to that community involvement, is there are Yara rules out there for looking into binaries, right? You can do a Yara rule scan on a binary and look for Java headers. You can look for the Log4j class path inclusions. And so with Uptycs and community Yara rules, you can kind of mesh those together and go looking for any, if you have Uber jars, if you have shaded jars, if you have Log4j embedded into binaries that you can't see into because it's not invoked directly in the class path command line or something else, you can take a Yara rule and go look at that binary and see if those headers are in there, see if those includes are in there, and be able to know if you have Log4j buried in a place that you didn't expect. So that's one way to kind of, in that middle ground there, right? You know the systems you want to see, but you want to get a little bit deeper, right? You want to reach into your Docker containers. You want to reach into your running binaries. You want to reach into the jar files on disk and see, and those kind of on demand, or again, scheduled Yara rules and scans are a great way to do that. And then, as mentioned, after you have, settled into a hopefully more stable and sustainable configuration, going back through with Yara rules and looking for indicators of compromise, looking for, people hitting Apache logs. One of the other things that we've done one of the other things that we've done in going from this sort of ad hoc investigation style to that like consistent reporting and metrics is taking all of the IOCs for Log4j exploits, right? The crypto miners, the mal actors getting a shell, and turn those into scheduled Yara rules. We're looking at our own systems that way, and we're helping our customers look at those systems as well. And in the vein of reporting, right? All of the things that we've talked about today, all of the things that we've done can be turned into dashboards and reports. If you need to know, okay, show me all of the deb packages that are running that are, Java related once a week, once a day. Show me that what ops says is happening is what is actually happening. Being able to go back and look at the pieces where you are not just writing your infrastructure as code, but ensuring that what's getting deployed is actually matching up with your expectations. And so Log4j is a big deal, right? It's the first CVE 10 I think I've worked in my career, which is pretty sarcastically fantastic. But it's given me a great chance to learn, and it's given me a great chance to kind of take all of these, this knowledge that I have, this knowledge that we have, and put it into something measurable and sustainable. And what we've done for ourselves and what we've done for our customers is actually set up a dashboard in our product. And the reason for that is because this is so critical, because this matters so much. You want to be able to see in a moment the hosts that you care about and the jars that you care about. And so this dashboard is kind of the aggregation of all of the things that I've talked about and so many more things. There's 3 or 4 blog posts that we've put out about this. Some of them fairly technical. And if you're interested in those, I highly encourage you to go look at them. But what this does is gather all of this information together into one place. And so we've got 76 hosts that we care about, and one of them is vulnerable. There's a single lone 216 jar hanging out here. And from here, we can drill down and look at the individual host. We can see the path. And as you can see, this is actually a WAR file. It's not even like a running process, but we were able to find and locate that on the disk and say, hey, this is something you should care about. And if you like to kind of turn off all of the, if you like to take a raw peek at your radar screen, as it were, this will show you all of the Log4j instances that have been discovered. Again, this is something where you can use this dashboard and the other portions of our tool to go even kind of check itself, right? You can go write whatever queries you want, whatever Yahoo Rules you can find, and make sure that what the dashboard is showing you is what's actually the case in your environment.
Yeah, Eric, I think this is great. And I think like especially these dashboards show one of the most powerful pieces of Uptycs is that we have so much fantastic data and telemetry, but we want to give you the story and context behind it as well. Don't give data for the sake of having data, but kind of looking at this dashboard, you can immediately understand how we're grouping the data that we're taking in. And the ability to go from a macro view of your environment saying, okay, this is all of my Linux systems. This is my Linux systems that have Log4j installed, breaking down what versions they have installed, and then kind of being able to drill down specifically at the very bottom there, what specific hosts have, say a vulnerable version of Log4j, and what's the command line path. So within one screen, we're not just saying, hey, go look at this. We're saying, hey, this specifically is what you might want to check out. And here's the context behind it. And here's why you might value this piece of data as such. So I think that context piece of being able to go from a macro to a micro view in a matter of seconds is a really powerful tool and a really powerful dashboard.
Absolutely, yeah. And the ability to drill down from here into individual hosts makes remediation, which we didn't even talk about, a whole lot easier. You can go from this 10,000 foot view of all of the Log4j in your environment that you care about down to the individual host level or the individual process level.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for walking us through all of this. I think you nailed it. And I think you really kind of gave a great story behind kind of breaking down what you would do in that first 30 minutes, that first hour, and then taking it to expand to the point of where we are right now, which is about a month or so, a month and a half out from the initial disclosure. So yeah, any final points, or I'm happy to take back and share my screen and kind of open it up to a couple questions.
I think that's everything on my end. Thanks very much, Jeremy.
Awesome. All right. Can you see my screen?
Looks good.
Awesome. So I know like one question that we tend to get a lot is, we touched on the remediation piece, but could you take a moment and talk about maybe killing processes? And I know that's a feature that Uptycs is starting to support, and how would that kind of kill process fit into this cycle of, remediation and blocking?
Yeah, exactly. So I did mention remediation a little bit earlier, and it is something that we do support and are growing support for. So hypothetically, if that's something where you, in the course of your investigation, you discover that there's a process that has been running and you absolutely positively need it to not be running anymore, right? And you don't have time to run down the hall or fire off an email and talk to ops and get them to go through that necessary process, right? If you're in a place where you've been granted the permission or capability to make those changes, there's the ability inside the Uptycs platform to reach out and kill specific processes. I want to be clear that that's firewalled off in kind of a separate context, and that's something that explicitly needs to be set up and like made known ahead of time. And what I mean by that is it is actually a completely separate like set of software that needs to be set up from the osquery based agent. One of the things that I, as a security investigator, appreciate about osquery is that it is read-only. So I know that my investigations aren't affecting the course of necessarily processes or things that are happening on the server. But if you absolutely need to get to a place where you have the ability to stop processes or do that kind of remediation immediately, that tool is available and is possible, and is certainly something that could be done, in that first hour or in that first day, even if you were looking and seeing indicators of compromise where you needed that to like stop immediately. You have the ability to reach out, kill those processes, even prevent them from spawning sometimes in the first case, and then then you have the ability to do kind of a more leisurely forensic investigation or decommission the server and spin up a new one that's known good, so that you're not damaging your business ability.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Eric, for walking us through that. Yeah, definitely kind of taking it in context as well. But I think the read-only piece of osquery is definitely kind of like a soothing aspect of it in a lot of ways as well. We do have another question. I'm happy to take this one as well. Talking about what's needed looking ahead for Log4j, kind of thinking about Log4j over the coming months, or maybe something that teams maybe oversighted or want to make sure they have down. So yeah, a few things that we have noted here for Log4j in 2022 is the context of working with teams. If you're a security practitioner, making sure that you're shifting left in your security perspective. If you have auto deployments or auto scaling, make sure that those configurations when you're working with your DevOps team are secure and are updated, and you're not using a Log4j configuration from September of 2021 or early December 2021 when you're doing your auto deployments or you're doing your auto scaling. And I think another important piece too of Log4j as we move forward is use the buzz and use all the eyeballs around Log4j to kind of push for better security aspects within your company. If you have legacy systems that need patching or need to be fully upgraded, use this as a case that, hey, this is something that we need to take serious, and this is maybe a good excuse to kind of put more effort and maybe more dollars behind full upgrades of systems and shifting into a more secure environment and a more hardened environment as we look ahead into 2022, because these permutations are going to keep coming, and something like Log4j isn't a one-off case. These things happen, they're cyclical, and another 0 day of a similar size will be coming eventually. It's not an if, it's an when. Eric, any final thoughts or anything you want to add? If not, I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined this call today. Like I said, our email is there, but feel free to reach out for anything specific, any questions, or if you have anything that you just want to chat about around Log4j or security in general. We love talking about this stuff. So yeah, Eric, anything else?
Not offhand. I definitely echo that closing sentiment. It's not a matter of if, but when. So the quicker you can kind of the smaller you can make your OODA loop, and the quicker you can kind of get to answers, to get to results, to get to changes, to get to verification, kind of making that iterate cycle so much smaller is as important in security as it is anywhere else.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. And thank you guys.
Thank you, Jeremy.